Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Safer Internet Lab's first hybrid event addressing information disorder, best practices, and the way forward. It is an honor for me to inform you that among us here, we have the Honorable Director of Informatics Empowerment at the Ministry of Communication and Information, Mr. Bonifasius Wahyu Pujianto, Senior Assistant and Special Staff at the Ministry of Communication and Information, Mr. Bhredipta Socarana, Chairman of Indonesian Anti-Slander Society and representative of CekFakta, Mr. Septiaji Eko Nugroho, General Secretary of the Alliance of Independent Journalists and representative of Damai Coalition, Ms. Ika Ningtyas, Head of International Project of Taiwan Fact Checker Center, Ms. HuiAn Ho, Editor-in-Chief of Japan Fact Check Center, Mr. Daisuke Furuta, and the Honorable Board of Directors of CSIS, Executive Director of CSIS, Mr. Jose Rizal Damuri. The spread of information disorder, including mis- and disinformation, remains the main issue. Stakeholders and communities across the Asia-Pacific region are increasingly coming together to counter these issues. The initiation for the new Safer Internet Lab's first hybrid event today was taken from the celebration of International Fact-Checking Day, which falls on the 2nd of April every year. Thus, we gather experts and practitioners to share lessons from experiences based on the best practices of current initiative and the way forward for policymakers. Today's seminar will be consisted of: the first is welcoming remarks. The second one is keynote speech. The third, the introduction of Safer Internet Lab. Fourth, session 1, sharing learnings and best practices from regional fact-checking communities. Fifth, session 2, policy dialogue and Q&A on improving the capacity and capability of fact-checking communities regionally. And the last one is closing remarks. First of all, I would like to invite Mr. Jose Rizal Damuri as the Executive Director of CSIS and Board of Advisor of Safer Internet Lab to give welcoming remarks. To Mr. Jose, we welcome the time and place.
Very good morning, everybody. Welcome to CSIS, Auditorium CSIS here. And also welcome to our seminar this morning on addressing information disorder, best practice and the way forward. This is a seminar, part of the fact-checking day that would be also have several others forums, several others events that would be lead to the G7 forum on misinformation in Japan. But anyway, welcome again. Hopefully we will have a good discussions this morning. And I would like also to say my appreciations to Bapak Bonifasius Wahyu Pujianto, who will deliver keynote speech on this event, and also to other speakers, to us other discussions in this forum that would also share your knowledge and your wisdoms, actually also insights to improve our understandings of the information disorder or misinformations. Perhaps I should also mention, of course, this event is also part of our new activities, CSIS activities, what we call a Safer Internet Lab. And this is also kind of like an event to introduce and to launch our that lab, our Safer Internet Lab programs that would be carried out to look at how to make the internet, how to make the digital activities safer in Indonesia and also in Southeast Asian countries in general. Well, perhaps you might wonder why CSIS, as I think one of the oldest think tanks in Indonesia and also in the regions, why we are interested in looking at these misinformations and information disorder. But I think we all know that the digital activities has becomes a very crucial and very important aspects in our life. It it's already part of our daily life. All activities already have some digital aspects on it. But it already gives us a lot of benefit. Make the transaction easier, for example, economic transaction easier, or also safer. It also reduce the cost of many economic transactions. In the social aspect, it also allow us to have a better communications, and also provide us with a lot of means that can make the life easier, and also perhaps we to enjoy a better life. But we also know that there are some what you call this, the dark side of the dark side of the internet, the dark side of the digital activity, and it comes from misinformation and disinformations that we've seen. We in Indonesia, for example, we are quite familiar with what happens in 2019 elections, when when we were flooded by a lot of informations that might not be regarded as a good informations, and can be regarded as false informations, based on the political motive. We also have seen that the digital activities have been used to influence or to gather a lot of informations that can be used for criminal activities, or in terms of the financial, to get the financial benefit for some parties. So this kind of misinformations and disinformations is around us, and that makes actually internet digital activities less safer than it's supposed to be. That's why our Safer Internet Lab will be carried out, will be launched today, and we will have some activities that try to look at on those issues in more detail and in more systematical way. Hopefully, we would also can contribute to the safer digital activities in the future. That's why in this program, actually, we don't only have the study part, we don't only have a research part of it, but we also have the engagement part, engagements with all the stakeholders that we have, either the content producers, the governments, and also the users, and many other stakeholders that are related to the digital activities. So I don't want to take more times to explain about this, because I think later on my colleagues would also explain to you about the programs on the Safer Internet Lab, and we will also have a discussions on this information disorder this morning, and we will look at it in a more detailed, more systematic way. So I just want to wish you good discussions today. Thank you very much for your presence, your participations in this in these discussions today, and hopefully we will have something to share to you and to also to the government and to other stakeholders on this issue later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yusuf, for the warm welcoming remarks. Next, I would like to invite the Director of Informatics Empowerment at the Ministry of Communication and Information, Mr. Bonifacius Wahyu Pujianto, to deliver a keynote speech. To Mr. Bonifacius, time and place are welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. So, thank you very much for all audience, Pak Yose, for your invitation, and to all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. So, I'm honored to be here to deliver the keynote speech on behalf of the Ministry of Communication and Informatics. Today we have a discussion addressing information disorder, best practices and the way forward. I think this is a good moment today, and I would like to express my sincere appreciation to everyone who joined in this seminar. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the era of digital, more specifically digital transformation, and the rise of internet adoption. Information disorder such as misinformation, hoax, and disinformation is becoming more widespread or prevalent than ever before. Research have shown that the internet has become a breeding ground for the spread of false information. And this has led to the increasing public concern about the credibility of information. This morning, we have a small talk with our colleague about this issue, more specifically about how we protect our society from misinformation. Maybe later during the discussion, Pak Zek and other distinguished panelists will discuss more deeply. So, the research, a poll by Lyot Register Foundation found that 57% of internet users in 142 countries perceive false information on the internet as major concern. This means there is a pressing need to address this issue and come up with efficient and effective solution. So, ladies and gentlemen, this challenge is not limited to one country, but it become a global issue. So that's why this seminar actually to at least to prepare some feedback for the G7 meeting in the upcoming event. So the Asia Pacific region as a home of several the faster growing online communities across the world. We also witness that the growing trend of social media development. According to the GSMA Asia Pacific Report 2021, 7 of 20 largest Facebook market here, 7 of the largest 20 Twitter market, also in Asia Pacific, 6 of 20 largest Instagram market come from Asia Pacific countries. However, this growth has also given rise of information disorder, which is polluting the digital space and causing negative impact to the users. And from us, from the government and stakeholder in Asia Pacific region, have recognized the seriousness of this issue and have been taking steps in combating this issue. In recent years, a number of measures have been implemented that involve collaboration between government and other stakeholders. For instance, Indonesia, through the Ministry of Communication and Informatics, has implemented an upstream to the downstream strategy in tackling false information. This strategy begins with the enhancing digital literacy, particularly in digital safety and digital ethics, and then blocking access to the negative content and cooperating in law enforcement. For instance, the Indonesian government has also utilized the ITE, Information and Transaction Electronic Law, to address false information online. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is still much to be done to overcome the issue of effectiveness, especially misinformation. But I'm confident that all the entities represented here have designed and implement various measures and practices that could be replicated and implemented within our region. Therefore, I believe that this forum is a great opportunity to at least to exchange idea, experience, and successful strategy in tackling misinformation. By sharing our knowledge and expertise, we can come up with some recommendation or some policy suggestion from the government across the Asia Pacific. This is to help and to create a safer digital space for everyone. So in conclusion, I would like to emphasize the importance of addressing information disorder, the need for cooperation between government, all the stakeholders in endeavor all this issue. By working together, we can create a safer digital space for all users where no hoaxes are left behind. Let us work together to tackle this issue and create a better future for online communities. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom. Om Santi 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 Om.
Thank you, Mr. Bonifacius, for the inspiring and insightful speech. Now, as this event was organized by Safer Internet Lab, today we are proud to introduce everyone to the Safer Internet Lab project, which was initiated by Google and CSIS Indonesia. We are calling Mr. Beltsazar Krisetya, the researcher of the Department of Politics and Social Change at CSIS and the principal researcher of the Safer Internet Lab. To Mr. Beltsazar, the floor is yours.
While we are still preparing for the slides, I would like to say once again, good morning to all the audience and to the esteemed invitees and panelists, Pak Bonifacius from Kominfo and the rest of the panelists. Thank you all for coming. My name is Beltsazar Krisetya from the Department of Politics and Social Change here at CSIS. And before we get on to the discussion, allow me to deliver some few short messages to initiate the discussion. So I will be conveying only these three messages. First, allow me to jog your memory on information disorder, on what has been already known and what remains largely in the unknowns of information disorder. The second one, allow me to introduce you and give you hints of what Safer Internet actually is, and as well as our reasons of being. And finally, allow me to conclude the intervention with an invitation letter to experts and observers of these informations. And before I got started, allow me to also greet our audience at Zoom and on YouTube. We've got panelists and audience joining us from Taiwan, Japan, and the Netherlands. Hello and thank you all for joining. So let's begin with the first known. We've already know that digital We've already know that information disorder spreads faster and further than factual information. The Integrity Institute has what is called the misinformation amplification factors. It measures how much does the virality of disinformation travels in social media in comparison with factual information. And the numbers shows that in all major platforms, be it Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, misinformation is more likely to get viral in comparison to factual information. Adding with the statistic on the right side, we show that there is a time delay of fact checks. It shows that it usually takes at the maximum 2 or 3 days before a factual information present in social media to counter the disinformation that has already been posted. It means while at the same time, around 90% of total engagement of disinformation is gained within the first 24 hours of posting. This means that a fact-checking activities may contain a certain disinformation from spreading even further, but unfortunately, it does not serve as a reset button. It does not, it cannot reverse of disinformation that has already been spread. And this is the first known. The second known is that there is an increasing trend of mixed media disinformation in video sharing platform. This is the data that we pulled from the good initiative that our colleague at MAFINDO, the Indonesia Anti-Slander community, has collected throughout the years, that there has been a significant increase on the mixed media disinformation, a combination between text, video, pictures, and audio formats in comparison to text-based disinformation. What is the consequences? The consequences is that mixed-based disinformation is more difficult to debunk in comparison to text-based disinformation. It usually takes more time. The technology that is being procured to disinformation is more advanced. And so the distribution channels, those that has a video sharing features, especially short videos within the platform, it also shows a trend of increase as well. And so we believe that there is a moving trend for disinformation content from text-based to video or mixed media-based disinformation. The third known is that this is something that we've talked about in the panelist room, that digital literacy is one thing. Sure, there has been many good initiatives to boost Indonesians' digital literacy, but information literacy and political literacy is another. This corresponds with the G20 survey on digital skills that CSIS did last year. It shows that the critical aspect of digital skills has the least variation in comparison to ICT proficiency or data literacy. And this also corresponds with the ComInfo survey that has only been released this year. It shows that majority of the populations still hesitant of telling or making their own judgment in which information considered as a factual information and which informations are not so truthful. And the last known is that we know this information is mostly orchestrated. It's not a sporadic movement, and the actors often borrow deniability from their instigators. We know that these information actors consist of informal and fluid networks populated by skilled and pragmatic online mercenaries, and is often outsourced by political and economic actors to, let's say, cement the elite's grip on power, influence voters' perceptions, or defend or sell policies. And the actors and the instigators that are involved in the campaign in this industry, quote unquote, consist of there are 4 categories at least. There are state-sponsored actors, instigators, there are in-house staff works, or they are using the advertising and PR agencies, such as using buzzers, the more in the light version, or they have the pure economic motives of clickbait farm. These all 4 actors are working in congruence to create one single disinformation industry. And it's a common practice, not only in Indonesia. So the 4 knowns has left us with the 4 unknowns as well. First, on the contents. Can we know the magnitude and gravity of disinformation at any given time? On platform, how can the stakeholders co-govern the social media to both promote freedom of safe speech and online safety at the same time, instead of a conundrum? On users, how wide are the gaps between digital, information, and political literacy, and how can we bridge them? And finally, on producers, is it even possible to deter and dissuade the actors? These are not novel questions. These are the questions that we have been asking since day one. These are the questions that all the stakeholders, all parties concerned have been asking. But then it is important to highlight that all these four focus on contents, platforms, users, and producers has to be asked at the same time for us to finally understand the whole flow of this information from the upstream down until the downstream. And thus, the reason of being for the Safer Internet Lab. It is a research initiative, it's a research collaborative effort initiated by CSIS in partnership with Google that is designed to address those four questions in the long term. First, SAIL will be focusing on disinformation, meaning the type of information that is false, but also has the intention to harm, such as false content, imposter, manipulated, or fabricated content. And SAIL will address this information closer to the point of infection. This is a famous graph. This is the logic that we've all been exposed to since the time of the pandemic and infodemic, that the sooner we intervene, the sooner that we make intervention against this information, the less likely that it will get spread to the higher audience. And so we conducted a preliminary research on what kind of activities or research that has been done in the past few years. And we can categorize that in 4 categories. There has been research and activities that are designed to prevent disinformation, such as attributing or identifying the instigators and funders, or identifying patterns of disinformation campaigns, for example. Second one, there has been a research and good initiative that are designed to prepare the user, to educate the users in a hope that they can make their own judgment on what kind of information are factual and what kind of information are not. And the third one, there has been initiative and research that focuses on curbing. We are talking about platform governance. How do we govern social media platform so that they can enact their own content moderation policy, or they can contextualize the content, or at the very extreme, conduct content removal without necessarily harming the freedom of expression. And the final one, there has been many fantastic initiatives around the world, in Indonesia included, to respond to the contents of disinformation, to correct the claim post hoc through debunking and counter speech. And these 4 steps of intervention needs to be exist at the same time, because it serves different purposes. The prevention steps is hope to deter and dissuade the disinformants. The preparation steps is hope to empower the users so that they can make their own judgment. The curbing phase is hope to enable the co-governance between all parties concerned, between the government, between the social media platform and the civil society organization and journalists. And the response phase is to counter the fact, it's to counter disinformation with a factual information. And this is where SAIL will conduct its research. It will primarily focus on these 3 first steps on prevention, preparing, and curbing. And so what will SAIL be doing, at least for the next year? We will be doing activities based on these 3 main branches. We will be doing research and building database, as well as conducting engagement events. On the research phase, we will be conducting 3 simultaneous research. The first research being focusing on disinformants. The second research will be focusing on users. And the third research will be focusing on medium and contents. We will be doing stock taking and producing toolkit as well as policy recommendation to investigate those questions that I've asked in the beginning of this presentation. On the database part, we will be conducting a national survey that examines the intertwining between digital information and political literacy on Indonesian voters and internet users en route to the 2024 election. On engagement, we will be hosting numerous and various of engagement events for national and local actors. We'll be hosting a launching event for SAIL. This is not a launching event. We'll be hosting a summit, as well as we'll be hosting a national academic conference to convene all scholars from all backgrounds that is relevant to information disorder, the ICT scholars, the STEM scholars, psychology, political science, computer science, and convene that in one single academic conference to discuss and find solutions against disinformation. And thus, it leaves us with a final point of making an invitation letter. There are ways to get involved with a SAIL initiative for the government. Let's explore ways to conduct track 1.5 engagement to discuss this matter. For academic and policy researchers, let's conduct a joint research and explore interdisciplinary means to resolve this issue. For tech platform, let's continue the exchange on content moderation and to explore the patterns of good governance. For civil society, let's build the toolkit together and conduct local pilot project so that we can empower user against disinformation. For the media and journalists, let's continue exploring the means of debunking, perhaps creating inoculation games, again, in the quest to empower the users. After all, the idea of Safer Internet Lab is built and is standing on the shoulders of giants. The idea of Safer Internet Lab is built upon previous research and the previous initiative that preceded. And so the least that we can do, the least that SAIL can do, is to turn this lab into a clearinghouse where all parties can pour their experience, pour their thought, and eventually devise a solution together. That is all from me. Thank you and happy discussing.
Thank you very much for Mr. Beltsazar for introducing to us about the Safer Internet Lab. Coming up next, our main event, the sharing and discussion session that we have been waiting for. We are inviting Mr. Nuri Oktariza, researcher at the Department of Politics and Social Change of CSIS, and the researcher at the Safer Internet Lab as today's moderator for the both session. To Mr. Nuri Oktariza, time and place are welcome.
Okay, thanks, Aim. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, first of all, for taking your time to come to this event. I'd like to say thank you also to those joining from CSIS YouTube channel and also Zoom, because we're also doing online streaming. So this event, once again, is co-organized by CSIS and Google, entitled Addressing Information Disorder, Best Practices and the Way Forward. In holding this event, I think we've got two main goals. The first one is already mentioned by my colleague, Mas Yose and Belts. We want to introduce to you about our new initiative, which is the creation of a Safer Internet Lab, or SAIL, which already explained very, very well by my colleagues Belts or Beltsazar. And then the second goal of this event is that we want to spark a debate. We want to hold discussions on the issue of information disorder, which is, I think, a very important topic to be discussed by us in Indonesia, especially, as you know, as Yose already mentioned, the election time is approaching right now. Next year, on February 2024, we're going to hold both presidential and legislative election conducted concurrently. And if we learn from our past experience, once the elections is conducting, usually people will get exposed to many, maybe fake news, misinformations, a lot of hoax, and those kind of informations really affect society at large. And I think those kind of effects still can be felt within our society until today. So that's why we do these conversations. And today we're gonna have two panels. The first one will be focusing more on best practices, in which we're gonna learn from many initiatives from different countries. We've got three speakers already joining us. I'm gonna introduce them one by one according to their speaking orders. So the first one, we've got Mr. Daisuke Furuta. He is the editor-in-chief of Japan Fact Check Center. Daisuke-san, can you hear us?
Yeah, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, great, excellent. Yeah. The second speaker also joining us from Zoom is Miss HuiAn Ho. She is from Taiwan Fact Check Center. Hello, Miss HuiAn Ho.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. And the third one is Mr. Septiaji Eko Nugroho. He is the founder of MAFINDO, or Indonesian Anti-Slander Society. Mas Septiaji, please come to the stage. All right. So before I hand it over to our panelists, I'd like to inform you that this conversation will run quite short. It runs approximately 40 minutes. So I guess it would be great if we have like 5 or 6 minutes presentation from each panelist, and then we can follow up with discussions from the audience. So Daisuke-san, would you like to go first with your presentation?
Yeah, thank you for having me here. This great event. It is really important to network with professionals fighting the problem of misinformation around the world. So, and I'm honored to talk to you all. Let me introduce myself. I started my career as a news reporter for Japanese national newspaper Asahi Shimbun, and then I moved to BuzzFeed as a founding editor-in-chief of the Japan edition. And then I worked for Google News Lab for 2 years as teaching fellow. And last year, we launched Japan Fast Fact Check Center last October. And we have published more than 70 fact-checking content in 6 months. We have just started to publish video content too. It is really important to spread short videos on various platforms like TikTok or YouTube Short or Instagram to deliver fact-checking content, especially to the younger generation. All fact-checking agencies are suffering from lack of funds. In order to create videos with fewer funds, we are trying to save labor by utilizing artificial voice functions. So why do we launch the JFC last year? I will tell you about the landscape of misinformation and countermeasures in Japan. ISGN is the world's biggest network for fact-checking. They issue signatories to organizations they meet their code of conduct. Currently, the more than 100 organizations worldwide have certification bodies, but Japan is the only G7 country without a single certified organization. Yeah, in Asia, or like Taiwan Fact Check Center, or Korea, or Hong Kong, or Malaysia, in Asia, each country, they have the organization which has a signatory, but in Japan, no. Some people say that the reason fact-checking has not spread in Japan is misinformation has not spread that far. That is true in some respect. Japanese people do not share news as much as people in other countries. According to digital news report from Reuters Institute, only 14% of internet users in Japan share the newsy content on internet. It's like 1/3 of in other countries. Like in Asia, the people love their social media, so they love to share the information. It means they share this information too. But in Japan, the people don't share newsy content. It means less misinformation spread. But that does not mean there was no misinformation in Japan. Yeah, we have fact-checked more than 70 misinformation on the internet, but they are just a small part of misinformation and disinformation spread in every platform in Japan. So for example, about Ukraine, there is a misinformation like Russia is fighting the Nazis, CNN reported. Of course, it's false. And then about earthquake, the earthquake in Turkey was caused by humans. It's false. And COVID-19, the vaccine to be compulsory for all, it's false. So, yeah, as I said, this information has already spread. And according to the book released last year called Conspiracy Theories in Japan, the data was shocking to me. There were over 20% of people who believe militant conspiracy theories, like the government is secretly involved in the murder of innocent citizens, or small unknown organization actually rule the world, or pandemics are human-made. Well, this kind of the so-called conspiracy theory is already spreading in Japan. And Finally, I would like to share my analysis about the misinformation in Japan. As in other countries, there is a lot of misinformation regarding vaccines, disasters, Ukraine, etc. But when it comes to politics, not much misinformation in the form of criticism of the ruling party. The criticism of the opposition have been mainly in specific areas such as gender, diversity, and history. The reason may be that the ruling party is overwhelmingly stronger than the opposition parties in Japan, and negative misinformation about the ruling party has less influence and less power to spread. However, the proliferation of political disinformation is increasing, as emerging forces are gaining seats in Congress by disseminating a series of unsubstantiated and extreme discourses, mainly through social media. So we need a DFC, Japan Fact Check Center, and we have submitted the application to IFCN to get signatory. And we need collaboration with other organizations to share the knowledge, tools, technologies to fight misinformation. Yeah, that's all for me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take.
All right. Thank you so much, Daisuke-san. We can give a big round of applause to Mr. Daisuke. Next, I'd like to invite Ms. HuiAn Ho. Screen is yours.
So, okay, thank you. So hello, I'm HuiAn. I'm the head of international projects and the reporter from Taiwan Fact Check Center, also known as TFC. So first of all, I want to say I'm very happy to be here and happy to see Daisuke and Zek also, and congratulations on founding the Japan Fact Check Center. Very excited. So yeah, so TFC, Taiwan Fact Check Center, is an independent and non-profit fact-checking organization based in Taipei and Taiwan. The primary objective of TFC is to combat misinformation and disinformation in Taiwan as well as in the Chinese-speaking world. So other than to fact-check, we also hope to raise the awareness of misinformation in Taiwan, and hopefully, like with our fact-checking report and other media literacy promotion work, we can help the audience in Taiwan to really make like informed decisions based on factual information. So, however, as we all know, and also as Mr. Krisetya from the Safer Internet Lab from the previous session just mentioned, fact-checking could be really like a slow progress. So it could really take days and sometimes even weeks to debunk falsehood. And by the time we finally publish our fact check, and the people who really believe, who share this piece of misinformation, or people who the big actor who spread it, they already move on to other misinformation. So that's why we really believe it's like, other than fact checking, it's really crucial to also equip people with media literacy and fact checking skills. So we hope like we can really like empower our audience to really have this skill, and so they can really detect and spot, and even to handle this kind of like a fake or suspicious information they receive online, and they can avoid sharing them instead of waiting for our fact-checking output. So I want to say, like, to achieve this goal, we launched the Taiwan Media Literacy Education Program in November 2021. So this is a 3-year initiative powered by a very generous donation of $1 million from Google.org. So in this project, we team up with 6 other Taiwanese local groups, including community colleges, grassroots initiatives, and other fact checkers in Taiwan. So we try to work together to host and organize a series of online and offline activities and workshops across Taiwan. And we hope, like, by this initiative, we can empower the Taiwanese of all age group, and particularly to those who are like digitally disadvantaged, such as senior citizens, people who live in the remote areas, indigenous people, and immigrants. So today I want to use this chance to share like some very excited projects focused on empowering senior citizens in Taiwan. So as I mentioned before, there are currently 89 community colleges in Taiwan. And in Taiwan, we call community college, and maybe in other countries like could be different than like lifelong learning education center or maybe like that. So we have 89 community college, and the students of community college, they are mostly adults. For example, could be retirees or housewives who are very interested in lifelong learning or civic topic issues. So in this pilot project, we start this pilot project to encourage the teachers from community colleges to integrate media literacy in two-layer curriculum. So at the moment, we have already more than 70 teachers volunteer for this program. They try to like blend media literacy into various disciplines, such as maybe it's going to be quite interesting, for example, like sports, language learning, photography, cooking, communication skills, and acting, and computer, and gardening, and so on. So as of the end of 2022, we already have 29 community colleges offering in total more than 180 lessons which are integrated with media literacy. And so far, we have already more than 18,000 students have attend this course. So it's one like a project I want to share with you. Another one also very interesting is another group called Fake News Cleaner, who takes a very different approach to reach elderly people in Taiwan. So what they do is that they go to where like people gathering, for example, wet markets, temples, community centers, or sometimes some mountain trails. So what they do is that they have some poster and they have some very popular rumor, and they use this as a quiz to catch people's attention and open up some a conversation about media literacy. So for example, there's a popular rumor about like, oh, if you drink the sweet potato leaf milk will be good for your health. This was very, very viral in Taiwan for some time. So they use this rumor like as a quiz to try to ask people if it's correct, if you have received this, and how can you debunk it. So most elderly, they receive this kind of information via their messaging app. In Taiwan, we use like Line a lot. So these volunteers from Fake News Cleaner, they also hope use this chance to teach this elderly to use the fact-checking chatbot to verify some like suspicious information on their own. And over 70% of their audience is over 70 years old. So although this kind of street campaign could be not the most efficient in terms of reach, because it just sometimes just a group of volunteers go to the street and try to talk to people, and sometimes it could be also very time consuming. But this kind of approach really allows them to really meet very diverse people and face to face, which we also think is very invaluable. So in just conclusion of my part, we are really proud of the progress we have made so far with the Taiwan Media Literacy Education Program. And we hope we can really continue to expanding our reach and impact, and hopefully to also empower even more people through this media literacy and fact checking. And of course, I also hope like with the, I use the chance today, we can learn some other best practices from our colleagues in this region. And that's my sharing today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, HuiAn Ho from Taiwan Fact Checking Center. Next, we're gonna give opportunity to Mr. Septiaji Eko Nugroho to talk about what he's doing with his team in MAFINDO. He's the founder of MAFINDO, or Indonesian Anti-Slander Society.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. For the first, I would like to thank CSIS and also Pak Yose for inviting me. And I would say to say hi to Daisuke, long time no see, and also Miss HuiAn Ho. I think we have just started initiative to train migrant workers in Taiwan, Indonesian migrant workers there, because I think we have like almost 300,000 Indonesian migrant workers in Taiwan that are very digital active. And I would say that in Indonesia, we have seen the information disaster in the digital space as soon as the internet came, and in about 1996, when the internet first came. But I think the most serious way, when we see the meeting between the social media and also the political events. So we saw in 2012 when there was a government elections in Jakarta, we see a lot of rising of misinformation and also hate speech. And the polarization is deepening after that. And then we see the first big elections which has the highest polarization that we saw at the time. It was the 2014 presidential elections that has a very big polarizations, and we see a lot of misinformations between camps, between both camps that participate. And then after the elections, the polarizations was not stopped. Even actually, it is deepening further and further. So we as concerned citizens, and we try to debunk any misinformations that we saw in the social medias, and we have like a group in the Facebook. We start a group in the Facebook, starting with like 20 people, and it attracts a lot of people, other people, because we see that a lot of people that have similar concerns. They fight with their families, they fight with their friends because of the political topics and ethnical topics. So in 2016, we see that we cannot do only in digital space. Fighting misinformation is should be also have like activities in the real world. So that's why in the end of 2016, we forged a community. So it is Masyarakat Anti Fitnah Indonesia, MAFINDO, is built, and with less than 40 volunteers at that time, we create declarations in 6 cities, and it attracts a lot of attentions from medias, from governments, and also from the people. And it seems that, as Daisuke said, Indonesian people love share a lot of things in the social media, and the impact is that we have a lot of misinformation. So compared to 70s in Japan, in MAFINDO database, we have almost more than 10,000 articles that we debunk since 2017. So it is a lot of number. Even when we had a pandemic in 2020, one journal stated us as the 5th biggest theory conspiracy, rumor and stigma in the world. Which is, we are not very proud of it, but I think what we would like to say is that we are learning that fact-checking, while it is important, it is not going to be enough, because misinformation is a symptom. It is not a disease. We have to address the root of the problems, which I would say that at least the fact-checking should be accompanied with the education efforts, which is very important. And the most important thing is trust building. Trust building. So in the beginning of 2017, I was invited into Ambon, and we learned that there is a kind of formula that for us, for MAFINDO, is perfect, that we are now using this formula. So it is, we called it Ambon spirit, meaning that after the conflicts between Muslim and Christian in Ambon, we see a lot of efforts to join these 2 camps between Muslim and Christian again. If there is a kind of misinformation spread, then the religious leaders, both Muslim and Christians, they will join together to fight those. So trust building is very, very important, meaning that if some Muslim people spread misinformation or hate speech to attack Christian, who will respond first? Christian people? No. It should be the Muslim leaders first to respond that. that in that order, the Christian people will ever feel safe, because nobody will try to attack them, in vice versa. So the Christian leaders is also going to be very, very active, yeah, to prevent. And this spirit we bring when we had governor elections in West Kalimantan in 2018. Some organizations, some national bodies said that West Kalimantan is the third potential conflict because of the governor elections, because it has historical racial tensions, and also it has also some effects from the very high temperature on the governor elections in 2017. So what we make there, we create a hoax crisis center. So basically it is a kind of simple activities connecting between stakeholders, local stakeholders, between journalists, between civil society, and especially local leaders, religious leaders, and also the local governments, and also the elections committees locally. So basically, we found that trust building is very important. In a trust society, fact actually can wait. Fact actually can wait, because it is not possible, yeah, to fact check everything instantly. We have sometimes to wait several hours, even sometimes several days, yeah. But in trust-based society, fact actually can wait. So we can see after the elections in West Kalimantan, some people expect there is a kind of minor or even major conflict there, but we see none. We see none. If we can read the report from the Sydney Jones on the August on 2018. So this kind of peace after the election is also some attributed to the activities to trust building that been made, yeah, there. So I think local-based trust building is going to be very important. And while we have to work also in the education efforts, yeah. For example, since 2019, we produce some contents with support from Google. It is called Stopbox Indonesia, to address the family. So basically, we start to empower the housewives. So we create the videos to ignite the discussions on these topics. And then 2020, we start to learn Nalar. It is a kind of activities to engage youths, students, and also in the universities. And then we continue to explore into the elderlies. So since 2022, we start creating and engaging curriculum, because many surveys said that from universities that the most vulnerable people targeted by this information is the elderly. And yeah, I think in the next elections, I think it is going to be quite challenging, because it is the most biggest elections that we are going to have. And we see almost rising misinformations during the elections. And we believe that fact-checking, while it is going to be very, very important, we are going to strengthen the fact-checking efforts, but prevention by trust building and inoculations and pre-banking is going to be prioritized. So now we are working with IG and AMSI in CekFakta coalitions that we built since 2018. We are working in this both direction. So I think that's my story. Hope we can continue in the discussion.
Okay, thank you so much, Mas Zach. It's interesting to know that, as you mentioned, we are among the 5th largest countries in terms of theory conspiracy. And also you mentioned you already debunked more than 10,000 articles. And we learned from the previous speakers that all of these countries, Indonesia, Taiwan, and Japan, each of the country has their own problems with regard to misinformation. But I think in terms of the magnitude of the problem, Indonesia, it's way higher than Japan and Taiwan. So now we move on to the Q&A sessions. We're going to take 3 questions. If you want to dig deeper to all the panelists. Yes, we got one. Yes, man on the back. All right, only 2. Silakan, Ibu.
Sorry.
Please mention your name
I'm
and
Susie Sudarman. I'm from UI and I also have an NGO called Inadis. And I had a schoolmate at Hopkins that published a book on trust community. It's been a couple of years ago, but I thought that was inspiring. So I used it in my class because I used to teach information technology. And I was just wondering if this is the core issue. I mean, building trust community is a core issue. Why is MAFINDO not suggesting to the government that this should become a policy? Because unless we manage to weave together all these suku bangsa, agama, ras, and class, I think we're going to be facing a lot of problems because basically the problem is not addressed. Okay, mungkin you can give me some inklings. Why isn't this heard? And the anthropologists or the sociologists not being used. After all, people have been writing about this, right? And so maybe you can spill the beans and tell me what's happening. Thank you.
okay, so the question goes to Mazak. Okay, the next one.
Thank you. My name is Giri from Forum Diskusi Publik Communities. I want to ask to CSIS as independent institutions, independent institution. The ITE law is legal protection for Indonesia. Is the ITE law effective, good enough, effective to against disinformation and misinformation, or even too restrictive for freedom of expression in digital activity? I think that.
So, Mas Giri, you asked the questions to CSIS or
Yes,
to
yes,
the
yes,
panelists? I'm
yes,
not sure.
yes.
All right.
Yeah.
CSIS is not on the panelists. Maybe Belts, you can address these questions. Is ITL law is good enough to address the problem of misinformation in Indonesia? Is it okay? Would you like to elaborate it more, maybe Belts? Okay. Any questions from the audience? Yes.
Rafa from Blue Pats Labs. So the question is, how do you view state-sponsored disinformation schematics, and how would you like to elaborate? This is like for the analysts, all the speakers, and would you like to share about your experience regarding the attribution and also the transparent process in classifying the disinformations, and also how do you disseminate the reports or the results of your analysis, and also the fact checking as well? Thank you.
Sorry, what's your name again, Mas?
Rafa.
And you ask these questions to Mas Zach, or
is it possible for all the speakers to
All right.
answer about this?
all right, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got three questions from audiences, and I think Mas Zach, you got many questions than the rest of the panelists. So,
Okay.
would you like to respond to that?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I think this is very interesting question. Yeah. How can we never heard about trust building issues being addressed in the wide way? Yeah. I'm for ourselves. Yeah. I think we are quite in as early as MAFINDO is working. We already create like way we call silaturahmi. So meaning it's like a convening between influencers, between religious leaders. Yeah, as early as 2017, we try to replicate the Ambon spirit. Yeah, so basically what we were doing in 2017 and also before the 2019 elections, we try to connect between religious leaders in a single place, and then we try to ignite discussions between them, and then would like to also see their perspective about these issues. Yeah, I think a lot of them, despite their differences, they agree that lie, like disinformations, is the common enemy. I mean that everybody thought that they were also a victim of the misinformations. Even, for example, in Solo, when we had these congregations between them, it is quite interesting, yeah, between some people from Nahdlatul Ulama, and also there is a kind of organization that people say quite strict, yeah, called MTA. So we can join them in the forum and then talk that, yeah, despite the differences, they agree that the disinformation is should be the common enemy. But I think to introduce it as a national level, I think actually MAFINDO is too small, yeah, to push that. We need helps. Actually, we need academics, yeah, to push that, because to solve this kind of issues, that I think, for example, now when the polarization exists and getting higher and higher, we need to kind of to stop, to de-escalate these polarizations. And I don't see that coming from, for example, from the Ministry of Polhukam, from something that actually should be taken this. For example, if we see on how Ambon people react to this, if we reflect to the elections, for example, if any followers of any party of or candidates say something to attack the opponents, then who should stop these misinformations? It should be the leaders. It should be their leaders should be stopped this first before the targets responding. So I think if we can hope, yeah, to raise this issue, raise this awareness that everybody should be involved, and especially those people that having a lot of influence, yeah, and especially the government, of course, should have like more initiatives, yeah, to on this one. But thank you very much, yeah, for the questions, and maybe I can continue answering the next question, yeah, from Mas Reva about the transparency on how we so basically, because we are like a grown-up community, yeah. So at the beginning, actually, we don't have many people that have basic in journalistic. Even myself, I'm engineering. I'm not a journalist. So we start learning from the basic. So at the moment, we try to like imitate the content from Snopes, yeah, onto the fact checking. And then we are quite fortunate. In 2017, we get some kind of training from First Draft in Google Office in Jakarta. So that this is the first time that we had a formal training on verifications, and also the basic on fact checking. And then we learned that in order to do fact checking, we have to comply to a specific code of principles, which is laid down by the IFCN very, very well. So because at the time we aim to be certified as IFCN signatories. So that's why we have to make sure that, for example, we have to apply for impartialities and also transparency, not only on the methodology of to do the fact checking, but also and including the transparency of the funds that we are using. So I think being certified by IFCN, I think now we have 6 organizations. MAFINDO is the only one that non-media organization that's being certified, and I think the code of principles that ensures the transparency. For example, we still use the forum in the Facebook groups. We have now almost 1,000 members there. So it is like our kitchen on doing fact checking. So everybody can ask, everybody can object if there is a kind of missing of something is if our fact checking content is wrong. There is also a kind of principle that we have to correct in harness, in harness and open way. So I think and also the classification, we use the first draft 7 category of misinformation, disinformations. We publish it in our websites. MAFINDO have turnbackhoax.id, and also with 24 online medias, we also publish on CekFakta.com. We also have a channels in Facebook and also in YouTube and also in Instagram and also Twitter. So I hope it answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mazek. Daisuke-san or HuiAn Ho, would you like to respond to some of the questions from the audience?
Yeah, okay. I want to answer about the question about the state-sponsored disinformation. Yeah, the influence of state-sponsored misinformation across borders is expanding. In Europe, fact-checkers, journalists, researchers, and people from all walks of life across borders are working together against the so-called cognitive warfare in Ukraine. And I think Asia needs such a network as well. I have been collaborating with people from Taiwanese organizations, including Taiwan Fact Check Center, but I hope to further expand such a network. Now we find some influence from China. Yeah, the HuiAn and Sama Chen, they wrote the article about that for this International Fact-Checking Day. But we have, in Japan, it's still not so big. But again, it's expanding. So we need the further network. So I think this kind of event is really important for all fact-checkers and journalists who are involved in this network. Thank you.
Thank you, Daisuke-san. HuiAn Ho.
Okay, thanks. Perhaps I should quickly talk about the dissemination. So at Taiwan Fact Check Center, like after we publish our fact checks, we also try to republish via our social media accounts such as Twitter, Line, and Facebook and Instagram. So one of the challenges we want to solve is for example, our fact check is in general, because we try to represent as detailed as possible about a certain issue we want to talk about. So the fact check itself could be quite lengthy and very long. So in order to check people's attention, we also think different audience really needs some different strategy. So for example, we sometimes try to we select some fact check and we reproduce them into some graphic cards. So it's perhaps 6 cards with be easy to read and easy to digest information on the cards, and we post them on Instagram. So and we probably also in Indonesia as well. We have a younger audience on Instagram. So far we found this kind of strategy work quite well, to publish some infographic cards on Instagram. And other than that, we also at the moment, under this Taiwan Media Literacy Education Program, we also try to have produce some podcasts to talk about media literacy, and sometimes we work with some radio channel to also talk about our fact check. So let's just some different strategy and different ways to disseminate our fact check, and hopefully we can reach to different groups, different communities in Taiwan. So yeah, that is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, HuiAn Ho. I was told that we were running out of time, so due to time constraint, we cannot take more questions. Let's give a big round of applause to our panelists for their insightful conversations in the first panel. And thank you so much for all the panelists. Mazek, you can stick around. Next, we're gonna move to the second panel of the day. Thank you, by the way, Daisuke-san and HuiAn Ho for your time and your insightful conversations. Have a good day. We move on to the second panel. We're going to talk more about the way forward. Yeah, so after we learn from many initiatives from different countries, now it's time for us to learn from different perspective from different stakeholders. All of them are Indonesians. So I'm just gonna invite all the panelists to come to the stage. The first one is Mr. Bhredipta Socarana. Mas Bhredipta, he is a senior assistant special staff at the Communication and Informatics Ministry. Silakan, Mas. Hello. Yeah. The second panelist is Ms. Ika Ningtyas from the Alliance of Independent Journalists atau AJI and Presidium member of Damai Coalition. Maybe you can talk a little bit about Damai Coalition, Mbak Ika. Our third panelist is Ms. Ariane Santoso, Senior Analyst, Government Affairs and Public Policy from Google. And the last one is Mas Septiaji Eko Nugroho, aka Mas Zek. Thank you for staying with me. Again, will run for about 40 minutes. So I'm going to give a time 5 up to maximum 6 minutes for each of the panelists to deliver their talk. And the first one is Mas Bhredipta Socarana. Please, Mas.
Okay, thank you, Mas. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleague attending this event. Boni, Pak Yose. My name is Bhredipta. I'm part of the special advisor. I'm part of the Office of Special Advisor for the Ministry of Communication and Informatics of Indonesia. As part of my duties, I oversee many activities on content moderation and several of regulatory implementation. I do have some slides. If just want to make sure if the slide has already been popping up. Okay, so today I've been asked to share what the government does to empower and strengthen cooperation in the local and region in regard to the fact-checking activities. So before I move to what we have been doing, I'm happy to share that our current lay of the land on this information. And folks, could you please switch to the next slide? Okay, yes, I don't think this is the updated slide, but no worries, it should work. Okay, so the lay of the land is disinformation and hoaxes are not exactly domesticated. Many of them are actually quite cross-border in nature because it has influence from several other countries. So the three examples that I shared here are example of hoaxes that related with Cambodia and Switzerland. We also have hoax related with Cristiano Ronaldo recently, who has been being converted to Muslim. Well, it's not. But this is the conditions in Indonesia where we at the ministry also working in cooperation with colleagues in CSO fact-checking community to debunk these hoaxes and uploading the report. In addition to that, we also receive various hoaxes and requests to debunk false information from our colleague at the local government, where many of them actually been suffering conditions where the identity of several high-ranking officials of local government is being misused and used to defraud people. And we until now have already debunked more than 11,000 hoaxes issues. So what we do is we collect the data on the issues, not the amount of the hoaxes given the magnitude of the volume of hoaxes online. Next. So what we do here, we do work both on local or national effort and regional or multilateral effort. At the local and national effort, we focus on strengthening collaboration between the stakeholders to address these information issues, while at the regional one, we focus on strengthening collaboration between states, especially at the ASEAN level. We encourage other stakeholders also to involve in the effort of countering disinformation. Next. At the local and national effort, if we refer to our previous work in countering COVID-19 disinformation, which we also have been applying on many type of disinformation, implement this pentahelix approach where we, with government, work with the media, local communities, academic, scholar, business to make a sustained behavioral changes. We work together hand in hand on daily basis to share information on disinformation, hoaxes, or whether we can receive some clarification from other colleagues, from other stakeholders. Take example, one of the closest example that I think Mas Jack already mentioned, and what we do also, we have a specific WhatsApp group where we gather many of the stakeholders and share. Is this information correct or not? Can someone provide clarification? Can someone debunk this to us, and we can create a report that will be circulated from another communities to another communities. This is what we have been doing, and we think that this will be one of the approach that can help to assist us in countering disinformation that remains happening, especially in the upcoming political year. Next. On the operationalization level, we have 3 layers of activities: upstream, middle stream, and downstream. The upstream focus on digital literacy activities, something that Pak Boni's directorate has been doing all along. We basically do campaigns, educational classes, trainings on digital literacy, webinar, discussion sessions with local communities, private institutions, academicians, governmental bodies, and many other stakeholders that are keen to improve our digital literacy so our society can be more resilient to disinformation. Second one, on the middle stream, we monitor and remove unlawful contents on the internet, including debunking hoaxes. So we create daily hoax report with its clarification. We gather the sources, we gather the information on the hoaxes from various sources, whether it is a report from the people, it is report from the society, it's report from local government or other stakeholders, or even if such information has been uploaded by other fact checker community, we can also reuse it and amplify it through our network as well. The last one, downstream, not my most favorite, but this is something that we have to do. The ministry supports the law enforcement by providing information requested by the Criminal Investigation Agency at the Indonesian National Police to do law enforcement for those who have been allegedly conducting criminal violations through spreading misinformation that is affecting the public. We did this several times for several hoaxes that quite significant to the public. Next. Also on the regional multilateral effort, well, at the multilateral effort, we actually do not have specific agenda on this, although just for the purpose of the discussion, there has been some discussion about the Russia actually proposed UN Convention on Ensuring International Information Security, and Human Rights Council adopts the role of states in countering the negative impact of disinformation. This is in relation to Ukraine and Russia war. But on the regional one, Indonesia actually part of ASEAN member state and ASEAN, and we have endorsed many, well, not many, but several framework on increasing digital literacy and how to minimize harmful effect of this fake news. This is several frameworks that has been approved under the ambit of ASEAN Minister responsible for information. The Minister of Communication and Informatics are part of it. And inside of the discussion, inside of that mechanism, we also encourage the involvement of norm setting among industry and improving digital literacy effort be increased as the part of combating disinformation. Next. So the next step or the way forward. I think I agree with what Mas Jack mentioned and all the speakers previously has mentioned that we need to remain raising awareness among the people through digital literacy, through educational activities to improve resiliencies from the disinformation and hoaxes. Second one would be to strengthen collaboration between each of the stakeholders, especially to build trust. Without communication, without collaboration, without the desire to have better discussion, we could not have a strong collaboration and we will not have trust between the stakeholders. The last one would be to improve fact-checking technology. As you know, we are now in the phase of various AI generating content. We have ChatGPT, we have other generation picture generating AI that will, increase the difficulties or challenge on fact-checking activities since it is mimicking the real picture. It can create very easy text-based disinformation that will eventually may improve, well, not improve, but affect our attempt to create a community or internet ecosystem that free from disinformation and hoaxes. I think that would be my the end of my talking, and I'll pass it to the moderator.
Okay, thank you so much, Mas Bre, for showing us many initiatives from the government in addressing this issue. Next panelist is Mbak Ika.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Ika Ningtyas. I'm a Secretary General of the Alliance of Independent Journalists, or AJI Indonesia. Also, AJI is part of the Damai Coalition, but I will to introduce about Damai Coalition of my context about my presentation. Yes, only a short-lived presentation. From the first session, from the Mas Septiaji, we learn how many the fantastic initiative that GSO, academic or university or others civil society to addressing of the misinformation. But we know that all the initiative is not enough because AJI identified three problem areas that how we can to address that the misinformation is still a huge problem in digital space, especially because we will to face the upcoming election. Yeah, the first problem about the ethical issues on political campaign in digital space. We understand that the politician hire and paid is like the cyber troops since 2014 election in 2019, that the cyber troop to manipulate of information on social media. If we read from the Reuters investigation in 2019, I don't know you aware about this investigation or not, but the a report is really important because success reveals about the cyber troop operation in digital space. The cyber troop is including three level as influencers, buzzers, and from the buzzers they produce so many or hundreds of the bot account or the fake account in several social media. But in other hand, we know that our election regulation cannot cover this problem since 2014. Is why the misinformation, especially about the political misinformation, is still huge spreads in our social media. But yeah, and sometimes it's just limited, only regulates in our election regulation, only regulate about the number of account and mandatory to register of campaign team members. And secondly, we must aware about the content moderation issues owned by social media platform, because we have understood that misinformation spread easily in digital space, supporting by business model of social media platform. In other hand, we don't know more as users about how the algorithm process and algorithm policy, content moderation process behind of the platform, and their initiative to handling misinformation, but in sometimes it's lacking of transparency about the algorithm and also about the content moderation process transparency. Algorithm, we know that enable content to be moderated at a speed and scale that would not possible as human moderator as well. But without significant human oversight, it make the algorithm cannot significantly to can reduce of the misinformation in their platform. And also increased reliance on algorithm led to substantially more contents being incorrectly identified as misinformation. One reason is that misinformation is often subtle and context dependent, making it difficult for automate system to analyze. Yeah, so it's why we need to aware about the transparency, both platform algorithm, and also about the content moderation behind of the operation the platform. And the third area, Aji is also identified the problem is come from the policy related to content moderation and fighting horses in Indonesia. A lot of research result that show how the government addressing the misinformation is related to shrinking of freedom of expression and declining our democracy. Yeah, we understand that the first question about IT law or IT law, because IT law only one of the regulation in Indonesia, but we have several regulation. Is like Permenkominfo 5 2020 or the newly the criminal codes and also the policy about the internet shutdown in 2019. All the regulation has been abused to silence of critical opinion and press freedom as well. However, inappropriate policy response to disinformation can themselves also pose risk to human rights, particularly the right to freedom and expression. Is one of mandatory from the Article 19 ICCPR. So we must be aware that the regulatory approach, it must have the human right base to fighting off the misinformation, because we need to, it's like to keep and protect of the freedom of expression and also under human right as well. Example, how the police institution or another state actor labeled the accurate information from activists, from journalists, and the credible information labeled as hoax, and some of them brought to prison under defamation article and fake news article in IT law. And secondly, if we aware about the Ministerial Regulation 5 or Permenkominfo 5 issued in 2020 and its revision in 2021 can force the platform to take down the particular content which indicate as problematic content or public disorder content. But the main problem, there is no independent mechanism and independent body involving this process to can measure how the criteria as the problematic content or not, and there is no independent body who involved to have it's like a supervising of the ministry. Yeah, so it's have a big potentially that the government is their abuse of power to can silence of the shrinking of expression and as well. Yeah, so there is no clear strict definition in all the regulation in Indonesia about the what definition fake information and what the criteria. What is the criteria misinformation, disinformation, also fake news in all Indonesian regulation, including in the new criminal codes that issues in last December 2022. So based of the complexity, UNESCO initiated to establish Damai coalition in early this year with involving 12 GSO, has a long experience working on information disorder issues. The coalition has goal to elaborate all the effort and how to communicate our consent to social media platform and also to government in specific consent to promote and to making how the campaign about transparency issues, the content moderation and freedom of expression. Yeah, so how the best way to tackle, yes, we have 1 minute, yes. Okay. Yeah, so how the best way we can tackle the misinformation, I'm agreed that we can to increase the effort to give is like a digital literacy, how we make how we can to increase about the good regulation by KPU or Bawaslu to can making the ethical of the political campaign in election, and also for policymaker, we need to aware about the regulatory approach is must to compatible with the human rights international standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak Ika. So we've got a perspective from the government, we've got a perspective from journalists and activists as well. Now it's time to turn to platform company. Yeah, Mbak Ariana Santoso, she's actually our main collaborator for SAIL, yeah, Safer Internet Lab, who always with us since the inception of SAIL. So Mbak Ana, please, the time is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, and very happy to be here and delighted that we finally launched Safer Internet Lab. It's an exciting start of an initiative that aims to help us better understand what is misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, and also how we can best address it on the ground. And from conversations from the previous panelists, like Pak Boni, Mas Bre and Mas Zek, it is clear that there is still a big gap in the way we understand misinformation, disinformation, or information disorder as a whole. And that's why I think what Safer Internet Lab aims to do is very important, because it's gonna create like the whole end-to-end process, the way we understand how misinformation spreads from the upstream end, and how we can also collaborate with different stakeholders from the downstream end, like fact-checking communities and other partners. So we are very happy. And as a note, it's not a side project for Google, because we very care about information disorder. As some of you may know, that our mission is actually to organize the world's information to make it universally useful and accessible. And misinformation does the opposite of that. And we just want to make sure, our products and initiatives can also help users find better information and empower a stronger information system. And that's why today, let me share you a couple of things in terms of how platform companies can actually contribute in addressing information disorder. One would be our approach. Second one would be like product policies, and the third one would be our initiatives. Just to give you like a brief summary of our approach, we usually have like 5 key pillars. The first one would be to protect our users. So we have community guidelines in place, we have internal policies. Like Mas Bre already said, the pentahelix approach was created when COVID happened. And that was very relevant because, we also have like different policies for different types of misinformation. One of them is health misinformation, and the other one would be election misinformation, is already part of our community guidelines. And there are many other things like impersonating individuals and also health misinformation. So we are very proud of our policies and the way we go to length to protect our users. And the second one, we also want to empower our users. We want to make sure our tools also provide appropriate context and information that can help them make an informed decision. And that's very important. It's also actually one of the key pillars of our election initiatives. One would be to help voters make an informed vote, among other things. So just to make sure that we want to empower our users, that they can stay safe online and also reap the benefits of digital transformation. And the third one, we want to make sure that we can surface authoritative information through our works with like reliable channels like media and news partners. And they're like credible news channels that we already work together very closely with through AMSI, through AMGI, AGI, and also CekFakta as a whole. And the fourth one would be collaborating with the whole ecosystem. It takes a village to address information disorder. And as Mazek already said, fact-checking is actually a small part of it because we require a whole lot more comprehensive actions together, collaborating with different actors in the ecosystem. So that's why we also work with CSIS to have more consortium members, working with researchers and university partners, just to make sure that we expand the body of knowledge as well, while we also do different works with different partners. One of them is also Tular Nalar, working with MAFINDO through our philanthropic arm, just making sure we have robust digital literacy initiatives as well, targeting different people. Elderly population is one, and we're going to also aim to focus on first-time voters in the next year. And the third one would be emerging threat. I'm sure some of you may have seen, the photos of some famous figures wearing a very fancy jacket in a couple of days. And it was actually a result of an AI application. So we also want to monitor closely the trends and emerging threats, make sure we are on top of things, working on the technology. So that's like our approach. And the second part is our product policy, as well as different initiatives that we have. First one, I think I want to point out, I think Daisuke-san highlighted, in Japan, not many people share, news, but Indonesia is different. When COVID happened, my mom kept telling me, you should eat a lot of garlic. You should drink like how many liters of ginger, like we are very social and we are a caring community because we want to tell other people, oh, we heard this good news, and we want to share it to my communities widely because we want them to be aware, we want them to be healthy. So I think it's based on like very good intentions, and we are very social people. I actually have the stats like on average, I think Indonesia spends more than 3 hours per day, like 3 hours, 18 minutes on social media. And the global average is around 2.5 hours. So that's quite a huge gap. Like we are very social, we have like good intentions. That can be tricky as well. So that's why we want to make sure we have good products and good product policies in place. One would be like search. We launched like this new feature on search, like about this result. There are 3 dots that people can know what the information comes from, how we determine that this information would be useful for you. And we also want to make sure that our users can have more control over their experiences online. So when it comes to safety and privacy, there are many adjustments that can make through their own accounts. So that's very important for us. On YouTube, we are also expanding the information channels, giving topical context. So different topics in different cities and different languages, we're expanding it. One is actually information around health misinformation. We launched with the Ministry of Health last year, and we're expanding it to cover more topics and to see the kinds of misinformation that we can address even more. We also want to make sure that our users can have access to quality information, and that's why we work very closely with CekFakta. And actually, there are 177,500 journalists already trained through our Google News Initiative programs in 17 countries. And in Indonesia itself, we are expanding the capacity of CekFakta in the coming years, especially as we welcome elections. And this is also very interesting. Google and YouTube also donated a grant of 13.2 million to an international fact-checking network at Poynter Institute. So we launched like the Global Fact Check Fund, covering 135 organizations in 65 countries and also covering 80 languages. So that's very important because, as we know, information disorder operates in different languages. Sometimes I'm from Bandung, and And there are types of misinformation that are quite interesting and can make sense more in Sundanese. And I believe there are different types of disinformation happening in different languages. And we are also aiming to also cover, the local context, working with local partners. And of course, the media literacy program, as I've already mentioned, the Tular Nalar initiative next year would be focusing on civic education for first-time voters and how we can address information disorder related to election. And as I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but we also have another pre-banking initiative driven by YouTube. So it's called Hit and Pause. It's gonna launch we are already in this discussion with some partners and identifying the right topics that we can, implement in Indonesia. And the last one that I want to share is also another pre-banking initiatives driven by Jigsaw. Jigsaw is like a unit within Google that tries to address different societal problems, and disinformation would be one of them. And we already started having expert interviews with local partners. And we are very grateful for the support of different partners working, and just very grateful we are on the same page and we understand the urgency and the importance of the issue. And we look forward to working even more closely to make sure that people can reap the benefits of digital transformation equally. Thank you.
Thank you, Bana. A very interesting talk on many initiatives made by Google in addressing this issue. And last but not least, Mas Zek.
Thank you. For this session, I would like to represent CekFakta.com. Yeah. Yeah. So CekFakta.com is a collaboration between MAFINDO and also AJI, Association of Journalists Alliance, yeah, and also AMSI, Indonesian Cyber Media Associations. So we believe that the wave of misinformation cannot be dealt alone. We cannot work alone. So we have to form symbiosis together. So we learned from the cross-check initiative in France during the presidential elections, because we thought that cross-check is a very good example on how those newsroom bring together and then their day-to-day monitoring and also to respond any misinformation during the elections. And we quite fortunate that in the end of 2017, we met the people from cross-check during the Google News Summit in United States. And then we had a good discussion with them. And then we are quite sure that it is very good, yeah, to have collaborations on fact checking, and because we need to have like a better response time, and also we need to have a good monitoring from various sectors, especially we have in AMSI and AJI, they have a lot of media spread across the nations. They understand better the local context, and also they can also, if we can work together, I think we believe at the time that the dissemination will be grow together. And the beginning 2018, we had a serial meeting. We adapt actually the curriculum for the digital verification informations. And then it is the basis of the training deck that is going to be trained. Now I think more than 10,000 journalists across the nations, and also some academics also been trained, and also newsroom also being trained by this training deck. And in the May 2018, we formed the CekFakta coalitions. Yeah, it was at the time Trusted Media Summit held by Google, and then we not only dealing with the 2019 elections, but it is like a long-term coalitions, because we think that it is a coalitions that should not only dealing with the political issues, but we have to deal the other issues. And it's become necessary, extremely necessary when we enter the pandemics. I think this coalition is also It's also important, yeah, to deal the misinformatics at the time. And when we forced the coalition, I think one question is it possible to merge between like a rivalry between maybe Ika and Tempo and also Kompas? Those are like a big names and that rivalry, whether maybe if you think, is it possible to join between Washington Post and New Times? Yeah, but it is possible in Indonesia. So when we had initial meetings between the chief of editors in the Tempo office I think in the March or April of 2018, we had like 12 people, chief of editors, Kompas, Tempo. So I voiced my concern that please, you can compete each other in other many areas, but in this fact checking, please, we have to join together. So meaning that if somebody create contents for fact checking and we can put it in CekFakta.com and then everybody can use it. You don't need to pay license or anything. So this is was agreed upon, and then we signed these collaborations. Yeah. So at the beginning, we prepare for the incoming 2019 elections. So we start building the networks, and also I think before CekFakta.com, maybe only a few news outlets that have specific fact-checking channels on their websites. But as you can see now, we have a lot of medias already have their own specific fact channels. Yeah, we have a CekFakta Tempo, we have a CekFakta Kompas, we have CekFakta Suara, we have CekFakta Liputan 6. We have even now local medias also their own fact-checking channels. So I think it is very good, meaning that we can have a lot of more ears, yeah, to monitor what happens in the society. So in the local context, I think we can get a lot of more infos, and then using these coalitions, people can ask the journalists on the ground to fact check any misinformation happening in the specific regions, and then get back to the coalitions, and then we can respond it together. So when we start the presidential elections in 2019, we also do the live fact checking when we had a presidential debates, the candidate debates. So it helped also to make sure that the campaign itself should not using disinformation itself. So I think it is like a practice that we are going to continue also for the next elections. It hope that every political candidates, every president candidates should dig more informations better, so that they will explain, they will campaign with much better information. If not, they will face the coalition of this CekFakta. And other things, I think in the next 2024 elections, we are going to improve more. We are going, now we have like 24 online media. So we expect to have hopefully 100 media joining the CekFakta in the next year. And also we also have some new activities like in pre-banking, so that we not only produce fact-checking articles, but we hope to produce pre-banking articles, especially on elections topics. Hopefully that these pre-banking articles, when it is spread by online media, it can hope to build trust, yeah, between the people on the elections. And also in other side, we also try to influence the digital literacy course in the Ministry of Education. So we already have like a way to influence them so that they will include the digital literacy from the schools, especially when since last year, the Ministry of Education already make the informatics course as mandatory. And before, informatics is thought to be learning about tools, about software. But now, it is now also about characters building, about skills, about ethics, about culture. So I think this is a good opportunity. If we can work together, we can continue together, improving the fact-checking ecosystem improving the prevention, the pre-bugging, and also influencing the education system. So I think CekFakta is now hopefully that we can make the ecosystem of fact checking is growing, and also hopefully that we can respond much better to the need of the populations. So thank you for
Okay, thank you, Mazek. Let's give a big round of applause to all the panelists. We are moving on to the Q&A sessions. I'm very sorry that we can only take one questions from the floor because we have another questions from the audience on YouTube. Yes, Shirley.
Check. Thank you for all the panelists. My name is Shirley. I'm an independent researcher. So please allow me to broaden the scope of our talk today. For us, the multi-stakeholders in Indonesia, the government, civil societies, private sector, including academia, to rethink about the challenges and needs that Indonesia is facing with the current trend and the upcoming trends, because we know with all the ChatGPT and all AI-based content moderation production tools, right? To rethink about the way we approach online content governance in a more holistic way. So that's my key point. To say about this point, please allow me to talk about the FGD that I participated, conducted by Google, by YouTube last month. So it's all about good journalism in the midst of the content creators industry. So the struggle is real because good journalism, the journalists, news media outlets, they are struggling to obtain their piece of cake to make sure that their industries are running well, because there are another sector is growing, that is the content production, like YouTuber, TikTokers. They are taking away of the cakes of these news media outlets. But at the same time, there are challenges experienced by these content producers, because they are having difficulties how to become good content producers, responsible content producers. They don't know, they felt that they are not nurtured by, I would like to say, like, at least the government, but also I think that the universities should be taking their responsibilities in here. So if we are now talking about today the dark side of the internet and social media, there's actually another side of the internet usage in Indonesia, because that this content creator industry actually is a real industry giving Indonesia a lot of money. But we should have like a responsible content creator industry. So, but at the same time, the other side is that we have a lot of challenges because of this misinformation and disinformation spread. So there are two sides of these problems. There are good benefits of the internet and social media, but also there are dark sides of the internet and social media. How should Indonesia redefine our approaches? Because I take the time to read again the IETE law, especially Article 40, and I noticed that actually there are some roles that the government may take, and then the second part of the Article 40 is the other roles that the societies may take. But there are no collaboration and coordination between two stakeholder groups. The article states that the civil society, they can take part in promoting the use of good digital platforms or digital social media, but through their own initiatives. But from the panel today, we learned that actually we need more collaboration and coordination between different stakeholder groups. So I think my main point is for us to redefine how we approach online content governance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Shirley. And we also have one questions from audience on YouTube. I think these questions will nicely fit to be responded by Mas Bre and Mbak Ika. How does the government and social media companies work together to classify and subsequently take down harmful content? Please bear in mind that there may be differences in definitions on harmful content between both institutions. So how does the government and social media companies work together to classify and subsequently take down harmful content? or maybe Mbak Anna, social media companies. Okay. Mungkin.
So should I answer both questions directly, or which one should I?
Well, you can just respond to these two questions.
Okay,
directly.
so I think I will respond to Mbak Sherly's question first about redefining online governance. I mean, yes, under EIT law, we have Article 40 that basically requires the government to empower the society and ensure the use of internet technology as good as possible. But I think that's what we do as well, at least in the Ministry of Communication and Informatics. I cannot speak on behalf of other institutions. We do encourage many stakeholders to have a seat with us and have a more discussion with us. And eventually, one of our most known, perhaps, pilot projects on this involvement would be under Pak Boni's directorate, where we collaborate with many stakeholders to have digital literacy activities. And we also have in other directorate, digital talent scholarship, where we provide education, hard skills education on digital skills to many students. Those are, honestly speaking, are not enough. But if the society, if other stakeholders have ideas, initiative, or what we should do together, I think we are more than happy to welcome such discussion. But I think, and the key point of online governance would be to have more collaboration, because internet is not owned by the government. Internet is not owned by the private companies. Internet is owned by the people using the internet. So only those who actually understand how we use it, when we communicate, when we have a discussion, then that's where collaboration and create, and we can define how the online governance should be. I think that would be my answer to your question, but hopefully it answers. Second one, on how the government classifies harmful content, from the question. So let's go back a few steps. So Indonesia is part of the ICCPR signatories. We understand that Article 19 does require the government to protect the freedom of expression. However, under subparagraph 3 of Article 19, there are also some limitation where we can, where the freedom of expression actually can be quote unquote restricted if it is provided by law for the purpose of public order, protection of reputation of other individuals, and protection of public health and morals. So this is what we try to derive in our legal and regulatory framework through the IAT law and several other laws, including the Government Regulation number 71 of 2019 and Ministry of Communication and Informatics number 5 and 2020. Specifically, on what kind of content that is considered as harmful, in Indonesian government point of view, we do not see it as a harmful content. Rather, we see it as unlawful content. Under, I'm not sure about the law, I'm not sure about the article itself, but I think in the article 94 until 96 of the Government Regulation number 71 of 2019, we provide a list in the elucidation or the explanatory part of the Government Regulation number 71 2019. We provide explanation with the list of what kind of unlawful content is. Every content that basically violating the law is considered as unlawful content, and accordingly, we may require the platform to remove it from their from their publication, from their website, application, and so on. Why? Because the violation, we understand that violation of law that happens offline can also happen online, whether it is an actual action of violating the law or inspiring people to violate the law. Take example, the distribution of fake medicine. It may not be regulated by IAT law. It may not be regulated by government regulation, but it is regulated under the health law. If the Ministry of Ministry of Health requires us to take down, and the BPOM, the Food and Drug Agency, requires us to take down, then we, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics, are under the obligation to requires Google, Facebook, Twitter, and so on to take that down as well. But why? Because it may bring harms to the public. That's how I can explain the technicalities on taking down. But we, as the Ministry of Communication and Informatics, we cannot do this by ourselves. We can only request the platform to take the content down if it is under request or recommendation, official request from the authorized institution.
Okay.
So I think that's how we define harmful/unlawful content. Hope that
Okay.
answers.
Okay. Thank you, Mas Bre. And next, Mbak Anne, would you like to respond to the questions from the YouTube? Yeah. And it's going to be the final response from our panelists.
Yes, my favorite kind of questions around content moderation. So I think there are two types of how we take down content. Would be one through community guidelines, and that's done through like HuiAn as well as human review. And actually the number was that for 1 quarter last year on YouTube, we've removed the violative content that managed to get out was only 0.07% to 0.11. So that's very, very small. But there were cases. So under our community guidelines mechanism, and the second one, like Mas Bre already said, that would be through legal removal requests, because we realize, we want to comply with the existing laws and regulations, and we work closely with the relevant government bodies. So that's why we also implement like a mechanism. Sometimes, strategically, like on the strategic level, we are very aligned, but the devil comes in the details, right? How are we going to do that? So actually, to be very technical, there are forms that our government partners can fill out. It actually requires the submitter to say what kind of regulations and laws are being violated, like the specific timing of the content that should be laid out. So that's very specific. And on top of that, we are being transparent about everything. So we also have transparency reports detailing how we respond to government requests and how we monitor the requests, as well as how we evaluate the requests. Because sometimes we find actually the content doesn't really violate anything, and we realize no relevant regulations or laws are being violated. So that's why we don't take down content. So it's all public information, and people can actually access how we respond to government takedown requests. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Mbak Anne, and that's going to be the last response from our panelists as we are approaching the end of our session today. And please join me in thanking all the panelists today for their wonderful and insightful conversations. I'm just gonna close the sessions now and give it back to our MC. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for all of the amazing speakers and the interesting discussion in both sessions. At the moment, we are already at the end of today's event. And before we put an end to today's event, we are inviting Mr. Arya Fernandes, the head of Department of Politics and Social Change at CSIS and researcher at Safer Internet Lab, to deliver closing remarks. Mr. Arya, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon for all of us. And on behalf of CSIS, I am honored to deliver this message of gratitude to all the panelists and participants. Thanks you for your experience and sharing the best practices. And we also would like to express our appreciation to every one of you for the actively engaging throughout today's discussion and sharing valuable insights and experiences that have significantly contributed to the success of this seminar. And your contribution has made this conference a rich and informative learning experience for all of us. And at the CSIS, we believe in the potential dialogues and collaboration to address complex issues such as disinformation. And that's why we have been fostering network among stakeholders, politicians, and universities. And we have initiated the Political Parties Discussion Network the Social and Political Science Conference. And we also had the head of the Indonesian Association for Public Opinion Survey for almost 10 years. And we share the same values and ideas in preventing disinformation with our partners, Google. And we hope that the establishment of the Safer Internet Lab is the prime example that brings the spirit of dialogue and collaboration for two reasons. The first, CEL aims to become a collective research platform and network from political scientists, psychologists, IT scholars, tech practitioners, and others to share their experience and best practices. Second, CEL aims to be the medium for engagement for fact-checking communities, tech platform, political actors, and the government in a mission to harmonize effort to counter disinformation. Addressing disinformation is like catching a moving target, and why synchronized step across stakeholders are crucial to put us one step ahead of these information campaigns. And we hope that CEL will be the way to handle, prevent, and mitigate the spread of misinformation in the upcoming election. And we predict the highly competitive presidential election, the spread of disinformation will increase. And so the electoral cycle may come and go, but the impact of this information stay longer. And we must ensure the effort to understand and intervene in information disorder continues sustainably. Finally, we hope that we have a wonderful and gain valuable insight that you can take back to your organization. And once again, thank you for your participation, and we look forward to staying in touch in the near future. Thank you. Good afternoon for all of us.
Mr. Arya, and thank you everyone for attending Safer Internet Lab's first hybrid event, addressing information disorder, best practices, and the way forward. We hope to see you again in our upcoming events, and we're saying goodbye right now. Goodbye and thank you. Good afternoon.